we are now going to be talking Cenral Western and Sioux Falls-Northwest. And Aaron, thank you so much for staying with me. Let's get into this matchup with Cenral and Missouri Western. As we talked at the top of the show, Western trying to avoid an 0-2 start for the first time since 2000. And again, they were able to make it to the Mineral Water Bowl that year, but a lot of Griffin people around the Griffin athletic community thought they could go 3-1 or 4-0 in this stretch. They'd be really sitting very pretty for a playoff berth, but after last week, it looks really hard to say that Missouri Western's even going to really be in this football game with Central. Now, obviously, from week 1 to week 2, you make the most improvement, but West really didn't show up last week against Pittsburgh State, and you can't really fault Travis Partridge when you get sacked 5 times and you don't feel comfortable in the pocket. It's very hard to have yourself a good football game.
Yeah, he obviously didn't look very comfortable in the pocket. I was at the game in St. Joseph last week, and he was rushed a lot, but even the times he did have a little bit of time, he wasn't able to find a receiver. And that's another testament to the good defense put on by Pitt State. And one thing I do want to mention is I've heard a lot of this, they were 0-2 before, and they came back for a good season. Well, in that season, that was Casey Waterman's junior season, his third of 4 great seasons at Missouri Western. As a lot of us know, he was the MIAA's all-time leading passer until Drew Newhart and Eric Chernetsky passed him last year. So, coming back from 0-2 with a guy like Casey Waterman's a lot easier than coming back from 0-2 if that happens with a guy like Travis Partridge, who, if that happens, probably won't have another very good game. So, it's if Partridge doesn't get off to a good start again, it could make for a long season in St. Joseph.
It very well could, but let's talk about this gauntlet of the schedule with a new quarterback like Travis Partridge. If things were to go well tonight in St. Joseph, I know it's just game 2, but you got to think that the confidence of the young quarterback Partridge might be rattled a little bit if he's not able to put up a good performance today against Central.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's another game like last week with 5 sacks and 2 big fumbles, he really needs to get something going this week against Central. And you know what? Maybe even if they do lose, if Central, because Central still has what appears to be a really high-powered offense. So it's going to be hard to hang with Central if they can repeat the kind of things they did last week. But I think it's vitally important, even if they don't come out on top of this game, that Travis Partridge needs to get some offense going in order for Missouri Western to get through, the harder and softer parts of their schedule. Because, not every game is a Pitt State or a Central Missouri. They're going to win some football games this year, but to do that, even they need a quarterback that can put out a good performance.
Let's talk about Central Missouri. They posed a different threat than Pittsburgh did. Only 55 yards on the ground in the win against Missouri Southern for the Mules, but they were playing one of the best rush defenses in the conference in Missouri Southern. And now, do you think when you're playing a defense that has been exposed like Missouri Western has with the ground game, we saw Anthony Stewart have himself one day last year against this Missouri Western defense rushing the football. We see the Mules do a little bit more running this week than passing.
Yeah, I talked with Sean Jones about that this week, and that conversation is on my blog at d2football.com. And he says, in order for things to work, they need to get things going on the ground. They've got a bunch of running backs that are kind of splitting the load. And not like in Emporia State, they've got a couple of guys that have proven to be successful. These are all kind of newcomers. There's a true freshman, Lance Taylor, in there. A couple more guys who haven't really seen much action, but they're kind of gonna split the load until somebody, if anybody, ever comes out as the clear number 1 guy. But yeah, to get things going, I think Central really needs to get the ball running. Tommy Corwin, great first game, 6 touchdowns, MIAA, and UCM tied for a record. That's not going to happen every game. It's going to be a tough season in this MIAA, and then there needs to be a little more they need to be a little more balanced in order to keep things going.
And I do want to talk about a story that came out of St. Joseph getting away from the football field here for a little bit, and I'm going to talk about this with Bob Wolf coming up inside the Griffin press box. But I got to talk about these two safeties for Missouri Western. I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time, but if you don't know the story, these two safeties made national headlines. Shane Simpson, Jack Long, for saving a 17-month-old baby boy's life as they were going a different way home from practice. They saw a lady beating her car with a hammer on a very hot day. I believe it was like 92 out of St. Joseph. And with all the scandals that are happening in college football, it's really nice to see, especially from the D2 ranks, that a story like this has made national headlines. Aaron, you wrote it for NBC Action News, and actually your story was the one that made it to ESPN.com. Just talk about your thoughts on the story and your thoughts of actually having something on ESPN.com.
Yeah, that was a good couple of days for NBC Action News, or for our website at least. That was just a great story, and I want to thank Missouri Western. Their video guy Ryan Menley gave me permission to use that story, use the images and the video on our website. And you're right, just a great story. The National Weather Service said actually it was 95 degrees that day in St. Joseph, so real hot, and just a great thing they did when they drove by. They kind of thought, well, that doesn't look very normal. Let's go see what's going on, and to really save the day. And I've heard some people say, well, this woman couldn't hit and knock out the window herself. You got to understand, car windows are not easy to break. They make them that way now. So it was really they really did save a life, and they even cared enough to come back and check on them later. The St. Joe News Press did a great story about how they came back, because they know they both suffered heat stroke in a season in practice in the past, so they have experience with extremely hot temperatures, and they did a really great thing, and they deserve the attention they got.
Absolutely, and talking about Ryan Menley, if you haven't seen it, it's up on D2 Football Live's Facebook page. I posted the video package that he did. Ryan did such a great job, and it's really cool to see a guy who hadn't started KQ2 now with Missouri Western with DSI to get the national attention, because he does such a great job. If you haven't checked out Griffin Sports Insider, well, really do, because Ryan Menley, if you are a fan of Missouri Western, does a fantastic job covering it, and he did a great job on that story as well. Aaron, now moving back into the actual game, what are the keys for Missouri Western if they have any chance at all of winning this football game? What do they have to do in order to knock off the Mules at home, again, the 12th ranked team in Division II football?
Well, they just got to get things going. I mean, they really didn't last week against Pitt State. Travis Partridge, I've dubbed him so far Little P on my blog, and he's gonna have to earn a more suitable and a better nickname. But until he gets things going, he's gonna be called Little P on my blog. But it's all about, I think their offensive line really needs to step up a little bit. Partridge was just rushed all game long, the 5 sacks, and even Michael Hill didn't have much of a game. Now, it might be interesting to see, Central Missouri lost one of their biggest performers last year on their defensive line. Adrian Perricone broke his leg in a motorcycle accident this week, so they lose one of their top performers from a week ago on their defensive line. So it might be a good week for Missouri Western to really grind it down on the ground to get things. If they can get things going on the ground, maybe that gives Travis Partridge a little bit of room to get things going in the air, and maybe they can make some things happen.
Moving on now to the final game of the day in Maryville, as Northwest taking on Sioux Falls-Northwest, moving from third spot to the second spot in the polls this week after a great performance against Truman State. It should be an emotional night, as it's Mel Churchma Day and Mel Churchma Bobblehead Day in Maryville. Saw the pictures, and you can buy this thing up in Maryville for $15 today. If you are up in Maryville interested, I believe it's going to be sold somewhere around the stadium. But it should be a good atmosphere. It should be an emotional day as they celebrate the career of Mel Churchman as well as the life of Scott Bostwick one more time, as this may be, in my opinion, the final hurdle that Northwest has to get over. It's not as big as last week, but it's still a hurdle, being the first home game in front of a ton of screaming Bearcat fans. It should be a pretty good night up there in Maryville.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely exciting. Mel and Carol Churchman Day. You know, Churchman's made it when you've got a bobblehead in your honor. But yeah, it's an interesting matchup though against Sioux Falls. They fell down big against Washburn last week, but they kind of held their own after that and almost got back into the game and really made it somewhat competitive towards the end. So I think Northwest has to be careful not to let the emotion and the crowd and everyone talking about Churchman and Coach Bostwick, don't let it get to them and really come out and play the kind of game they did last week to avoid a team like Sioux Falls coming out and putting a big shock on everybody.
Sioux Falls, such a powerhouse in Division or NAIA. Before moving up to Division II this year, 69-2. What can you tell me about the Cougars, Aaron?
Well, they lost the NAIA Player of the Year to graduation and their wide receiver, but they bring in a quarterback who transferred over from California, PA, a Division II school, who he was good at times last week against Washburn, but threw a couple ugly passes that turned into interceptions. It's a team that's been built on their defense over the years. They're not as strong due to graduation, some guys they lost as they've been in years past. But I think this is a team that they're heading into the Northern Sun Conference next year. I think they're going to be a top 5 team in that conference right away. And I think even this year, if they were in that conference, even if they were in the MIAA, they could compete with a lot of teams. I don't think they're quite the dominating team they were in the NAIA, but I think you got to watch out for them. You know, it's not going to be a pushover, and I expect them to give Northwest enough of a game that it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be 49-0 at halftime like it was against Truman last week. But I think towards the end Northwest might pull away. But watch out for Sioux Falls. They might make some things happen.
And he is the MIAA columnist for D2Football.com. Again, you can catch his blog or column or whatever you want to call it. Football.com. Aaron, as always, thank you so much for your time.
No problem, Nate. We'll talk to you next week.